What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast, presented by the Fantasyholics Podcast Network, coming at you live on the Fantasyholics Podcast Network YouTube channel. I am Bo. That is Brant. Brant, we got a special episode this week. We're 8 days away from the kickoff of the NFL season. Yesterday, we had rosters trimmed down to the 53-man. You saw some, updates on the PUP, some updates on players coming off of it, IRs for some different players. It's just a lot going on right now in the fantasy world, and the NFL world, rather, and then that affects the fantasy world. Rashee Rice accepted a 6-game suspension today. Definitely some news there that's worth talking about for sure. But this week we wanted to come out and do something live. The Fantasyholics have a partnership with Underdog Fantasy, Brant. And we thought it was only right that we came at you guys with some season entries that we like for this season, give you time to get in there and put your entries in as well on some higher and lowers for season stats this week. Brant, before we get into the episode, anything in the NFL world that you just feel like you got to talk about real quick before we jump into it?
You had, Adam Thielen going home. Getting traded back to the Vikings. Actually, right before we got on, I was going through TikTok, and his kid is even more excited than probably the fantasy world is. But yeah, he's going home. It's great for him. I honestly wasn't sure we would see that as well as he did in the Panthers uniform last year. But I do think that does have some relevancy with Addison missing the first few games. And then, like you said, Rashee Rice taking the suspension. Ease expectations on that offense. We did see in the preseason he does like to look. Mahomes likes to look Rashee's way. You could probably in dynasty layouts you can probably go get him for dirt cheap. I know in ours we're not going to because I believe he's sitting on your roster right now. So I'm probably not going to be able to go get him dirt cheap. But I do think that you could go make a stab at this guy and suspension out of the way. He's 24 years old. 24 years old, go make a splash play to go get him. Go give up. You might be able to, especially if like the first 3 weeks they're struggling. Maybe you can send somebody over there because you do know that Rice, that Chiefs offense is going to look phenomenal come week 7. They should get Hollywood Brown back, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce will be out there. That offense is going to be fun to watch whenever they do all come back.
He is 25 years old, just to set the record right. But I will also say, Brant, shameless plug here. My wife and 2 daughters both told me I had to bring it up on the cast. But Killa Trav got engaged to Taylor in Missouri, and the Forbidden Forest looking setup there that was announced over the weekend here. But maybe Killa Trav gets some more targets in the first 6 weeks, and rolls back the camera or the clock a little bit, and tries to take one to Father Time there for those first 6 weeks of the season without Rashee Rice. So, also I will say this too, and I know this is a guy you were considering moving for a minute. I'd say this is a small boost for Jalen Royals, I would say. Potentially get him a chance to find a way to get on the field the first 6 weeks and maybe give himself a chance to, show Reed and Mahomes and the rest of that team in Kansas City that I could fill that void.
Right.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
I will say the other thing that has happened since we were on here that's probably worth talking about was Brian Robinson traded to the Niners from the Commanders. A lot of people are saying it's Bill season. We will see what happens there. That's definitely interesting. For the people that drafted early and were able to pick him off of waivers, that could be really intriguing. I know a lot of people. I think Chris Rodriguez was the number 1 added player on stream or on sleepers. So definitely going to be interesting to see how that backfield shakes out as the season progresses. And then it'll be interesting to see, what the Brian Robinson role looks like in San Francisco, because he went from a serviceable running back that you could be starting in lineups to potentially a roster clogger if CMC ends up being healthy and playing a full slate. So definitely some interesting things there, Brant.
Yeah, definitely is. I think he is the clear backup, the clear handcuff to CMC now. I know, that toss up between Grindo and a couple other names were there, but I think it's clearly Brian Robinson now.
Yeah, I would say that's probably affectionate way of saying that. Yeah. And I will say this, even if CMC is completely healthy, we do know Kyle Shanahan is going to use multiple backs. Brian Robinson will see the field. I honestly, at this point, as a Brian Robinson owner in that home dynasty league we were talking about, I don't know what that I have no way of speculating what that's going to look like. If CMC's healthy, CMC's a game changer. We probably don't see a lot of Brian Robinson, but maybe a goal line back potentially. Who knows?
I will say the going rate for him in our home league has to be a first-round draft pick, right? In order for you to trade him to the CMC owner, I think you have to get the first-round rookie draft pick, right?
I will say one of the two Fatboyz has paid a first-round pick for a CMC backup before, not named Bo.
Mind you, he was not the backup. CMC got traded like 2 days later after I made that
2 days
trade.
later. But yes. All right. So real quick, before I play the video, before we jump into these season-long entries on Underdog, the Fantasy Holics team has partnered with Underdog again. When you get on there and you do a $5 entry, they will give you $50 back to use the code Holics when you sign in there and get yourself some free play from the Fantasy Holics team. Brant and I are on there all season. Every Sunday we do plays of the week as we do our live start sits. Another shameless plug. Make sure you're jumping on there and hanging out with Brant and I on Sunday mornings as the season progresses. We're live every Sunday morning talking about food, fantasy football, anything in between. You name it will be on there. And even as the season progresses, there's been known to be Fatboyz that dress up for the holidays. So jump in there and hang out with us. Let's play this video and then we'll get into it, Brant.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, Brant, very special relationship with Underdog Fantasy. You and I have been using it now for a few seasons. Very user friendly. A lot of very fun features on the app. One of my favorite. We're not going to talk about it tonight necessarily, but is that Rivals tab where you can have two different players go head to head. So if you think Najee Harris is outperformed by James Conner, you can jump on there and probably find that. Maybe not Najee Harris with his eye injury. Maybe that was a bad grab right off the rip, but maybe James Conner versus Kenneth Walker or something. Okay. Or if you're watching a game week one, maybe you're jumping on that Packers Lions week one contest and you think, Jess Jacobs outperforms Jahmyr Gibbs. There's a way to go on there and do that head-to-head between those two players. A lot of fun. That's my favorite feature. I don't know what your favorite feature is of the app, Brant, but I'm sure I'll let you tell us right now.
Yeah, I definitely do like the Rivals one. I am all about those season-long stats and projections there and going after that with the higher and lower on those. As I see my opinion of things that change throughout the off season, everything else. I love the season-long ones. This one makes it a little easier for me. So I don't have to, stare at it all season. It's sitting there, it's done. I can be patient and wait and possibly have some prizes at the end of the year.
Okay. All right. Who do you want? Let's start with our season props, Brant, and I'm going to let you be the leader in the clubhouse here. Who do you want to start with?
I'm gonna start with my my three hires. I'm gonna go with the very first one. I got Jerry Jeudy to go higher than 3.5 receiving touchdowns. He's with the Cleveland Browns. They're going to be playing from behind. They're probably going to be mixing in some quarterbacks, and I think Judy's going to be a number one there. I think he's a guy that you can steal in a lot of your drafts, and I think he's going to be the favorite target for whichever quarterback it is. So I definitely expect him to go higher than 3.5 receiving touchdowns.
Okay. All right. For me, I'm going to start with Dak Prescott going higher than 3,874.5 passing yards. In his last 3 healthy seasons, Brant, he's been like 900 yards above that. If Dak is able to stay healthy this year, we talk about the emergence of George Pickens, or the addition of George Pickens, the CeeDee Lamb that is CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, right? And then you look at that backfield. This is not a team that's going to be able to run the ball super effectively. I think it's going to be a running back department that they're going to throw crap on the wall and see what sticks. But no clear bell cow there, no clear, run game. I think they're going to lean on Dak's arm. That's why getting George Pickens was so important for the Cowboys. And though I'm not a George Pickens fan, I am a Dak Prescott fan this season. I think Dak absolutely obliterates the higher than 3,874 and a half. As long as he plays 15 games this year, that's not in jeopardy at all.
Okay. All right. I definitely like that one. I am a George Pickens believer. I think that offense is going to be fun to watch through the air, because definitely not on the ground is it going to be fun to watch. My next one is my next hire. I'm going with Ricky Pearsall to go higher than 864 and a half receiving yards. Ayuk's out for multiple weeks to begin the season. Juwan Jennings wants a contract. He's banged up. They're going out. They're throwing darts at walls and trying to get as many receivers as they can. Ricky Pearsall is going to use those first few weeks to really develop that chemistry with Brock Purdy, and I think he could honestly be the number one for this entire year, even when Ayuk comes back, as Ayuk's getting back up to speed. I expect Ricky Pearsall to go higher than 1,000 yards this year. I do think he'll be a 1,000-yard receiver, so I definitely think he'll eclipse that 864 and a half receiving yards.
All right. Since you brought up the 49ers, I'm going to stick right with it. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think Ricky Pearsall is the number one target on that team at all. I think it's going to end up being George Kittle. And as I look at the 6.5 line for receiving touchdowns, he's going to be way higher than that, Brant. Like you alluded to, those first 6 weeks, it's pretty much looking like at this point it's going to be Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle. Those are the only things that we know for certain are going to be there on the outside catching passes. I mean, Juwan Jennings sounds like he might be good to go for week 1. They just traded for Sky Moore. Sounds like they're extremely interested in Kendrick Bourne coming over after he got cut. So it's going to be really interesting to see who lines up at the wide receiver position. But we know who's going to be the tight end for the 49ers. This man just got paid this offseason. I expect George Kittle to have somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 touchdowns this season, especially early. I think he's going to be the main focal point of that pass-catching game for Brock Purdy, with no Deebo Samuel, with no Brandon Ayuk, at least for the first 6 weeks. I think George Kittle's going to absolutely eat this year, Brant. You and I both had him as our tight end 1 this year. I think in order for him to be there, he's going to have the touchdowns, because I don't think the yards are necessarily going to be there. Receptions will be, and if there was a reception higher or lower on this, I think I'd be way higher. But yeah, I think the touchdowns are what is going to put George Kittle above the pack this year.
Okay. All right. I don't hate it. I do think he will be the red zone monster when passing. So I don't hate that one at all. I'm going to go with the guy that I think is going to take over the number one role on his team, and that's Roma Dunze. I think he's going to take over the number one role on this team with the new Ben Johnson offense. I think he's going to get moved all over. I'm taking him to go higher than 849 and a half receiving yards. I expect him to be one of the focal points, one of the guys that moves around. I know that DJ Moore and Luther Burden are there, but I do think that he'll be the number one guy there by the end of the year, and I do expect him to go higher than 849 and a half yards. I know their defense is good, so it might keep them down, but they're in a very high-powered conference division that they're going to have to score to keep up with some of these teams, and I think they're going to find ways to get the ball in his hands.
Yeah, and so this one's a fun one to me, Brant, because I want to pick at you here and try to dissect your brain, because just a few short weeks ago, a lot of us were mocking Bears fans. Again, you and I are in the heart of Bears country. There's a video of Caleb Williams 10 yards away from a net, and he can't hit the net from 10 yards. Granted, I know the net doesn't have hands, arms, and runs routes like Roma Dunze, so that definitely plays a part. But are you at all worried that Caleb Williams is going to go through a sophomore slump, or just not? If Roma Dunze doesn't have a great season, is it because of Roma Dunze, or is it because of Caleb Williams in your mind?
I think it's going to be because of Caleb Williams. That's why I think that Ben Johnson's going to try to scheme, because like you said, he was struggling to hit from 10 yards away. I think he's going to try to scheme to get the balls out of Caleb Williams' hands fast, short slant routes, screen routes, just to develop that confidence in the beginning of the year. And I think that's where the yards after catch is what I think is going to be the money maker for Rome and that Bears offense, because they're going to have to get rid of the ball quick, because you give Caleb times, and I feel like he makes his own mistake when you give him too much time back there.
Well, he's definitely going to have time this year. That's probably the most improved offensive line in the National Football League this year. So I'm just curious because I'm not a guy who honestly I can't think of any Bears players that I have in any of my. I'm probably in what 8 or 9 dynasty leagues, and at this point, I think I might have a Cole Kmet share still 1 or 2 places because of how high I was on him, but wasn't in a position to draft Loveland this year. I was never a DJ Moore guy, and then by the time I came around on DJ Moore, obviously the price was played out. So I really don't have any Bears at this point, Brant. So I guess I'm not that in tune with the offense. I guess I do have a lot of shares of Roshan Johnson. That's a guy that I believe in really hard, but that doesn't really translate well to the passing game. So I guess maybe I'm not as in tune with it as the rest of the folks are. And of course, what I hear is a lot of delusional Bears fans talking about how crown me the offseason champ, right? The regular season doesn't matter. So, the voices out there and we'll see. I'm just a little nervous about this. I think Ben Johnson's offense in year 3 with the Bears is going to be very intriguing. I wonder if maybe it's a little too gimmicky for year 1 for them to catch on, and it's going to have to be a very vanilla playbook initially. But we'll see. You never know, and I know you were a Rome guy through and through. You liked him at Washington. You did what you had to do to acquire him in some leagues. So I know you're pulling on the Rome strings at this point. And I will say this, Brant, you don't say it very often. I'll let you toot their lap. Usually you're right on your wide receiver loves coming out of college. Sometimes you give up on those players before it happens, like Rashad Bateman. Jacoby Myers you held on to for forever and did trade him high. But yeah, you like a lot of these guys, and that takes them a couple years to hit, and usually they do, and a lot of other people are out on them before it happens. So, Brant, I'm not saying you're a savant when it comes to wide receivers, but you've definitely been right on a few, so it wouldn't shock me if you end up being correct on Rome as well.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I'm going to go with one that is a player I ended up drafting in our home league, and my one rookie pick that I had that was kind of destined from about the first week of the college football season last year. Ashton Jeanty, I've got to go higher than just about almost every statistical category he's got on the Underdog app, but I'm going to start with the 2. Number 1, 7.5 rushing touchdowns. I think he goes way higher than that. We'll call it what it is. I think Pete's learned his lesson down around the goal line at this point. Not gonna make those mistakes again. With outside of Brock Bowers, a kind of wishy-washy wide receiver room. I know Jacoby's still there, but requested the trade. Amari Cooper just signed. I think Ashton Jeanty and Brock Bowers are going to be the absolute focal points of this team in the red zone. And I think Jeanty is a guy that I think I would be shocked if he doesn't have somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 total touchdowns, just because of where I think this team is at this point. And, the Raiders rebuild, if you will. I think in a couple of years, this team's going to be really special. But early on, I think Jeanty's going to be the focal point. And then I'm going to say this too. Another one that I love on the Underdog app, it's got 3.5 games with 100 rush yards. I think he goes way higher than that, Brant. This is a player, we saw him be electric as all get out at Boise State. And I know it's Boise State, probably not playing the greatest competition over there in the Mountain West. But with that being said, I still think this is a guy that, and we've seen it in the running back world to begin with. These running backs, they're so good and they're so fast nowadays that they're one broken tackle away from an 80-yard touchdown. We see Derrick Henry do it almost every week, even at his age. So I think for me, Jeanty, I'm going to take his higher on the 7.5 rushing touchdowns and the 3.5 games of 100 or more rush yards, Brant.
Okay. It scares me. That whole team scares me.
Understandable.
Pete being 97 years old and probably probably the best quarterback on their team. It's
throwing some shade at your former quarterback. Okay. All right.
I'm kind of avoiding. Yes, I know I have Brock Bowers, and I do still think he's the cheat code for tight ends in fantasy. Mm-hmm. That whole team just scares me. Even Bowers' performance this year is going to scare me a little bit, just because I don't know what to expect. Everything seems new. I know Gino and Pete together is not new, but everything else seems new. So I'm a little scared on it. I'm not going to say that I don't believe it. It's very possible that all these happen, that he goes higher than everything. I'm just scared to put my entry in with that.
Okay.
I
All right.
actually, when we talked previous to this, and I did take it off, I actually had him lower than what his rush yards were going to be. I
Okay.
think he was I think it was over 1,000 or very
It
close
is.
to.
It's over
Yeah.
1,000.
So I actually was going to take the lower on that one there because
It's
it does scare me.
1,074.5.
Yep. So as we talk about lower on rushing yards, that can throw me right into my next one. I'm taking Kyron Williams to go lower than 1,024.5 rush yards. Blake Corum's there, Hunter's there. I think they're going to cut into it. And I don't think he sees as many carries as he has in the past. And I just don't think they're going to lean on him as much. I do think he's a very serviceable fantasy back. I think he finds the end zone, but I think he starts to rotate all three heads in to keep people healthy. The Rams team, we see it every single year. They find themselves right there in the playoff hunt, if not making the playoffs. So I think you're going to see all three of these backs rotating in every single game. And I don't see him. I don't see Kyron going over 1,000 rushing yards this year or higher than 1,000. So I'm taking that lower.
Okay, this is interesting. I think this one absolutely smashes if Matthew Stafford's back injury lingers all season and he's not able to perform up to the standards of himself. If that shakes off, I think this will be a passing team. I mean, when you look at the Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Terrence Ferguson, Tyler Higbee, all the names that are there, I think this is an offense that should, make people look silly passing the ball. But again, if it's Jimmy G under center or a banged up Matthew Stafford, that does change things for me. So this is the one where I could say, man, again, we've seen Kyron Williams in the past. He's got to be used and abused. If he doesn't get 20 carries a game, he's irrelevant, right? Because his what's his efficiency numbers are terrible.
Yeah.
It was eluding me there. Sorry. His efficiency numbers are terrible. They have been terrible the last couple of years. So, and again, we talked about it when he came out of Notre Dame, Brant, because he was one of your guys coming out of Notre Dame. He's a little undersized and a little slow. That doesn't really translate to NFL success usually. It's been lightning in a bottle the last couple of seasons. But again, it's because the numbers have been there for him the last couple of years. Again, if either Blake Corum or Jacquez Hunter come in and they're able to cut into his workload a little bit, and let's say he's getting 17 to 18 carries a game, that may be enough that it just drags him underneath that threshold. Maybe you're looking at 925 yards rushing, which again is enough to keep it below that. So again, for me, as long as Stafford is healthy, I think I agree with you. If Stafford's not healthy and this team's got to establish itself through the run and use the run game as their strength, then maybe I don't agree. But as it stands right now, I'm going to say I'm with you on that one.
Okay. All right.
I apparently am just one of those people, Brant, when I get together and look at these season-long plays, I just can't ever get myself to pick the ones that I think are going to go under. So I always just end up with a plate full of hires. So I've got Marvin Harrison Jr., a guy who I think was kind of disappointing last year. I think it's his line for 100-yard receiving games is 2.5. I think he does that pretty easily this year. I still don't want to go out and say that I think he has 1,000-yard season or, that he's fallen into the end zone double-digit times, but I think he's capable of having 3 games with 100 yards receiving this year, which is all it would take for him to hit his higher, excuse me. I think when you talk about Marvin Harrison, the offseason news has all been appropriate, right? Kyler Murray is talking about how he's got to get him more involved. Everything coming out from coach speak is they've got to get him more involved. If that even happens a little bit, I think, and you see him game plan for Marvin Harrison, potentially, I think you could see him having those 3 100-yard games pretty early in the season, honestly.
Okay. Yeah, I think that defense isn't the greatest. I think they open against the Saints or something, so he could be having 100 yards in that very first game. I know that their first matchup is not.
It is the Saints.
It is. Yeah, it's definitely not scary. So I could easily see him go over 100 yards, probably in the first drive of that game with what the Saints have. That's an easy smash right there for to go higher than that in my book. I'm going to go with another lower. I guess somebody has to at least look at the lower side. And this is another guy that I was huge out of college. Is the reason that this other guy is going to go lower. I got Tyrone Tracy to go lower than 724 24 and a half rush yards on the year. He had fumble issues last year. We saw him get benched a few times last year because of fumbles. Then you got Cam Scatterbo, who his work ethic is going to get him on the field when he is fully healthy. Just the way that he runs hard. He runs, nose to the ground. He's going for it every single time. And then Singletary's still sitting there knocking on the door just to, play 5 to 10 snaps a game and take a few carries. I think Tracy ends up splitting his backfield. If he has any type of fumble issues, he may lose the number one spot pretty quickly. So yeah, I'm taking Tracy to go lower than 724 and a half rush yards. Plus it's the New York Giants. So they're probably going to be playing from behind a lot, and they're going to have to air the ball out.
Yeah, and I will say this too, Brant. The parallels between Cam Scatterbo and Peyton Hillis are so fun. And granted, I understand, the color of the skin is the least of it for me. It's how hard those two guys both run. They're like, yeah, I could juke around this guy potentially, but I'm good. I would much rather go through your chest on this play and take you back 3 or 4 yards and just lay an absolute violent hit stick on you. And those guys are really fun to watch. It may not last a long time, but it's really fun when it's happening. And if you remember those glorious Peyton Hillis years, they were fun for about 2 years, Brant. I mean, the guy made the cover of Madden, for Pete's sake. Then we thought we had another one come out in Toby Gerhart from Stanford, which never amounted to anything. Of course, going behind Adrian Peterson at the Vikings is never going to lend itself to a lot of playing time. But I'm rooting for Cam Scatterbo. I ended up drafting him in a couple more drafts than I wanted to potentially. I won't say I'm the biggest fan of him, but I did have you on these episodes a lot this year talking him up, and you had done your research on Cam, so I was trusting you in spots where I ended up taking him. But yeah, I'm not who's a huge Tracy fan. I mean, there's not many of us. I would say, going into the season open, he carries.
Yeah, I went into our draft thinking he was going to fall right there in my lap at the 202, and I got just right in front of me. I cried a little bit when I missed him in our home league, but we got him in our co-owned league in our dynasty. We got him. So at least I do have a share of him, and I probably will in a couple other leagues because I think his work ethic is and the way he runs is going to be one of the best and one of the highlights, and we do still have neighbors there. I think he will be one of the best highlights for the New York Giants this year.
Okay, all right, I can jive with that. We do have an agreement with you. We've got an easy lower on Tracy. That's Jay, the guy behind the scenes, coming in telling you he doesn't agree with you there. So, all right, let's see if I can get you to agree with me, Brant. And I think I already know the answer to this one because you were like, "Dang it, I didn't realize you had this player too." As we were getting these set up, but listen, I've been on tooting the toot on the Drake London train all off season. Obviously, I'm going to rock with my boy here too. I had him on the spicy takes. Or not the spicy takes, the My Guy flag plant episode. I don't think it's crazy to do this, but one of the features you can do on there is being the guy with the most regular season receiving yards, Brant. That's one of the plays you can make and put on your entry. I'm smashing that for Drake London, and I think volume is the key here. I'm not saying this is a guy that's going to have, it's not going to be Julio Jones against the Panthers in Julio's prime where he's getting 300 receiving yards because he's breaking 3 or 4 70-yard touchdowns. But man, I think Drake London's got a chance to be the wide receiver 1 in fantasy this year because volume is king. I think he's Michael Penix's guy. We saw a very small sample size of that in Carolina last year. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see this guy have 175 targets this year, Brant. I'm talking targets, 125 receptions. I'm talking 18 to 2,000 yards receiving, like the Megatron-esque season for Drake London in a Falcons uniform, and I just hope his body holds up to it because I think he's going to be used and abused. Darnell Mooney's banged up. Ray McLeod's not a true wide receiver. Kyle Pitts is not a true tight end. We don't know what Kyle Pitts is at this point except for a waste of a 4th overall draft pick. But I will say this. I think this Atlanta Falcons offense is going to be very fun this year. I don't think the defense is going to be very good, so they're going to put points up. They're going to, be a sieve for points on the other end. But I think Drake London, I think this is a guy you're talking about 15 targets a game, just goes off every week, Brant. I love Drake London this year. I can't get enough. And I think there's a realistic chance. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to go take out a second mortgage on my home and put it on Drake London to be the wide receiver one, but I'm saying it's juicy enough for me that I could see myself putting a couple dollars on it and letting it ride. And again, right now, Brant, the line for this is 11.5. It's 11.5 times your entry. So, you put $10 down on it, you're coming out money ahead. So, and again, when you put that money in and you make that $5 entry, you're getting $50 back. So why not?
I definitely could sprinkle a little bit on that, and I'm going to put this out when they put these lines and these stats out. There's obviously some research behind it. 1,124.5 receiving yards is this man's stat line. So it's definitely up there. I'm definitely on board with going higher than that on his stat line there for yards. And sprinkle a little bit on the regular season. I'm a Michael Penix guy, so I do think he's going to air the ball out. I know that he has one of the best deep balls coming out of college, even with being 37 years old, 97 years old, however old you want to say he is. I would even go
QB1, knock it off.
That's right. Okay, cool. He can be as old as he wants as long as he's airing the ball out 50 yards down the field.
To Drake London.
I would even go much as say I would probably sprinkle a little bit on your wide receiver too there, and Kyle Pitts going higher than his receiving yards also, because like you said, I believe in that offense this year. It's going to be fun to watch with Pitts and London and Bijan and Penix. I love it.
Okay. All right. Well, here we go. I just want to mention this too, Brant, because I showed Jay coming on and saying easy lower on Tracy. We've got Tyler saying higher on Tracy. So I'm you've got a 50-50 split here, Brant. Sway Tyler or sway Jay. See if you can get him on your side.
Tyler, I think there's too much in the backfield. I think that New York Giants team is going to want to see what they have. They're not going to be competing for that division. They have Cam Scatterbo back there. They have Jackson Dart as the quarterback, possibly Russell Wilson. I think the Giants are going to be a revolving door. Jameis Winston is still there too.
Thank you.
I'm surprised he's still there. I still think he winds up being traded at some point soon. But I think that's going to be a revolving door in that backfield. And I think they're going to see what they have for the future rather than just trying to focus on this year. So I cannot get on board with going higher on Tracy.
Yeah, again, I am on Team Brand on this one, but I could understand potentially being hesitant, right? Like the draft capital wasn't necessarily the greatest on Cam, right? They didn't invest in him on all that much, right? And we do have Malik Neighbors, Russell Wilson, and Jameis Winston and Jackson Dart. I mean, this team may just be super bad all the way around. I don't know. Outside of Malik Neighbors, it might not be much fun at all to be had in New York. But it'd be interesting to see if Brant's right or wrong on this one. And listen, again, Brant and I are willing to eat those L's too. We'll chew on those just like James chews on the W's. If we're wrong on it, we'll be the first ones to admit it. So it'd be interesting to circle back in a few weeks into the season and see where that backfield's at.
I've got them all written down. I'm more than happy to circle back, and I will admit my wins, and I will definitely admit my losses on this. You and me have talked about it quite a bit at work that my losses seem to be triumphing my wins lately. So I'm hoping I can get back on board when the NFL season catches back up.
And listen, I will say this too. The old saying goes, there's nobody harder on you than yourself. That's not true. I'm harder on Brant than Brant is on himself, and he's harder on me. We put each other's feet to the fire all the time when we mess up or we have a bad take. Me and this guy have almost gotten in fistfights in real life because of missing a letter on a player's name before and getting confused. So, hey, listen, we'll hold each other accountable, and it may be something you hear us be brought up on this cast in the distant future if one of us is wrong on one of these big time.
Oh, absolutely. Guys, thanks for joining us tonight on our Underdog special. Don't forget, join us every Sunday starting week 1 for all your start sits live on Facebook and YouTube. The Fatboyz, we're going to discuss food, football, fantasy, Underdog. We love this. It's here. It's like here. Starting tomorrow, I'm gonna throw a little bit out of it. Starting tomorrow, we have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday of college football. Then you have to wait like 3 days, and then all of a sudden the NFL is back on track. It's here. Football season is upon us. Time to get those grills fired up, the crock pots going, the food are going. It's time for fall. It's time for football. And I think that wraps it up for us here.
Mm-hmm.
So as always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.